Welcome to another program of the Tandy Leather Factory video series. This program is on how to carve a mallard duck. I have dampened my leather and allowed it to dry until it's returning to its natural color. So now we can do our tracing, and I've got to be very careful with this tracing because of the fact that it is an animal, or let's say a bird, and we have to have it pretty much exactly in the right size and shape. Notice I am doing some dotted lines as well as some solid lines. The dotted lines will be used later for modeling. The solid lines we will cut with the swivel knife. Now it pays to check your tracing from time to time. As you see me doing here, I've got, of course, I've got it taped along the top so that after I check it, it will always come back down exactly where it should be. Not necessary to trace real deep, just deep enough so that you can see it. This is especially true where we get here where lines are close together. We want to be able to see those lines, but they don't have to be deep. I think this is about all of my tracing now. I will lift it up and double check, and everything looks fine, so now we can continue. To do our swivel knife cutting, I'm going to use a 1/4-inch angle blade, and in this case I like the thinner blade and I like the ceramic blade. So even though it's ceramic, we need to polish the blade every time we pick it up and every time it begins to drag. So now we can very carefully cut. Now, it's not necessary to cut real deep in these cases. It's more important that you stay exactly on your lines than it is to cut deep. Especially here in the opening in the beak, just cut not real deep. The eye we will not cut on this particular bird. And now as we start to cut feathers, I want you to notice that here I'm going to slightly undercut. Normally we don't want to undercut, but here, because these are feathers with very thin edges, we will come underneath and lift them up slightly when we do our beveling. Do that on the feathers only, on the side where we're going to bevel. Now, as we get down to these smaller feathers, I want to tell you that we're going to cut not as deep because we will do very, very little beveling on these feathers. So we'll just cut them very shallow. Please note now on the feathers on the opposite side wing, I'm also undercutting ever so slightly. There are some short feather ends down here at the bottom of the body and kind of covering where the leg comes out, so I'll make just short little cuts there to simulate those feather endings. When doing figure carving, we usually start with the beveling, and today I'm going to start with two sizes of checkered bevelers, a B205 and a B702. And I always like to use my largest tools first, so I will take the B205 and I'll begin by beveling the main parts of the duck. And as you'll see, I'm beveling on the outside. This causes the body of the duck to stand up. Here where the body overlaps the right-hand wing, you'll notice that I take that right on through. Now to get this wing to stand out, I will bevel along the outside of the wing. I'm being very careful now as I bevel around the head, because I want to make sure I maintain the exact shape of the head. Please note I am not beveling in the mouth. I'm now going to switch to the smaller beveler and go around these tight curves. Notice that as soon as I do the smaller beveler, I do not hit near as hard. Notice here I'm only doing the outer edges of these feathers. I'm now just using this beveler to separate the wing from the body. As I get down here where these smaller feathers are, I just bevel the edge, as you can see me doing here. Now I will very carefully bevel around the outside of these legs to make them stand out. Now I will use an even smaller beveler to do the bottoms of these feet. Now I can go back to my medium size and separate the tail portion here from the feathers. Notice I'm not stamping real deep here. Next, I will use a number F976 pointed beveler, and I will use it in these areas as you see here to deepen the beveling where these sharp points are. It's important that you be very careful with this tool. And also, it is not necessary to stamp real deep with this. It is a sharp tool. At the base of the body, where I have these fine little feather endings, I will take the number F910, which is a pointed beveler that has lines on it as opposed to a checkered surface. And this separates the body and the area where the legs come out.